Howdy everybody, Jason Lawrence here. I hope you are having a great day. I am having a great day. You know, I like to intermix different topics into my videos, and I understand that's not as friendly for the algorithm as it could be if I was just doing one video on a specific topic, but I guess I don't really care because this is how I do them. So I'm having a great day today. I am going to talk about how important it is to have certain things in place before you start building a spec home. There are certain things that you have to have right, exact, correct, just things that you need to have done before you start building your spec home. Otherwise, you could get into really big trouble. So stay tuned for that. I'm just going to veer off topic for just a little bit because if you're watching this video, you're my people, right? We share similar interest. Obviously, you're interested about new home building, and one of the things that is a common theme with new home builders is our lifestyle. You know, we don't work in an office. We don't have a 9 to 5 at a cubicle. We kind of set our own schedules. We have the mindset, and I guess it's just the way the things are, is we determine our own destiny. You know, like, even though we don't have a schedule, we don't have maybe we don't have a boss that we have to report to. Well, that doesn't mean that, like, oh yeah, you just get to screw around all day and this is great. I mean, yeah, you could do that too, but you're not going to make a lot of money doing that. So you have to hold yourself accountable, right? That's one of the biggest things with this industry. Even you know, because the other industry that I'm still also, hey guys, just want to cut in real quick here and talk about what I'm talking about with the topic of this video. If you don't know a lot about home building, you don't know if a blueprint is good or not, if it's vague or not. That's something that I can offer in my consulting services. I can look at those plans and I can say, let's find someone else, or this doesn't have this or that. Things that can save you money when it comes to building your home. So check out the details for my coaching, my courses, in the description below. In and involved with it goes with home building is real estate. And it's the same thing with real estate. Like, you have a broker that you're going to have to report to, but you pretty much set your own schedule. You know, so you're, you know, depending on how many hours you work, how many meetings you take, what you put into it is what you get out of it. And it's the same thing with home building. So the amazing thing about being a home builder is the freedom. You know, if you know, tomorrow, for example, I've got a little barn I'm building on my property, and I'm building it all myself. Like, I've done everything for it. And I need to get this finished because we've got an event at our home next weekend. We've got a really amazing property that my wife and I have been building up. You can actually find that on our other channel called The Lawrence Garden Farm if you want to see what my property looks like and what I do when I'm not doing this, not building homes. You can go check that out. So it's called The Lawrence Garden Farm, and that's on YouTube. And but anyways, we've got an event that's coming up, so there's a bunch of stuff to do around the property, and I'm trying to get this little barn finished. This barn is a barn that I built for our 2 horses, and just kind of giving them a little bit of an upgrade from what they have. We just acquired a donkey, so need a little more space. So just like if somebody's thinking about building a home, you know, what are some of the reasons that they might need to build a home? Well, maybe they are expecting and they're going to have another child, so they are going to need to go from a 3-bedroom home to a 4-bedroom home, you know. But I'm having a great day. I love the freedom that I get. So, like, tomorrow, I just decided, like, hey, I'm going to take off tomorrow, and I'm just going to try to finish building this barn and get this all done, so that way I'm a little less, you know, thinking about that, and a little less stressed with that part of my life. So the great thing about this type of industry is the freedom and being able to say that, you know what, I'm going to take off tomorrow and I'm going to concentrate on doing something else, or I'm going to take off tomorrow and I'm going to spend the day with my family, or whatever it is. And I feel good about doing it because I feel like, at least right now, and this changes so quickly, it can change within a matter of a day or even hours. But right now, I do not feel overwhelmed with my home building career. Now, just this past week, I did. What's the difference? Well, this week, I've been staying up late, and I don't want to do this all the time and forever because I don't think it's healthy, and I just don't want to. But, you know, there are certain times where if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, and, you know, a lot of my days consist of, you know, like right now I'm going to meet with somebody. And if I'm going to meet with somebody, I'm not able to do the work that I need to get done in order to like move things forward with jobs. So if I'm going to meet with somebody, I'm just not able to spend that time doing the things that still really need to get done. And so a lot of my days consist of that, of meetings and phone calls and things like that, to where I'm not really able to get the things done on my to-do list. So the things that I need to get done on my to-do list, I've been doing those things at night. So after the kids and my wife go to bed, you know, between the hours of 9 o'clock and midnight, I've been able to put in some good time. And I've been doing that now for, I think it's been like 4 or 5 days in a row. And so I'm feeling really good about where things are at right now. So now I feel really good about saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to take off tomorrow and work on something else that's really important to me. Whereas if I was feeling completely buried with my home building career and everything that I need to get done there, I might choose not to do that. So just wanted to share something that I absolutely love about this career and this industry, and really the other part of why I'm doing so great today, and I'm always feeling good for the most part. Not that stress always creeps in, and that feeling of being overwhelmed can always creep in, because as soon as I get a phone call about something else that's happening, or so and so ends up, you know, not moving forward with the build, or whatever it is, things that are out of my control, that can place some stress on you, some added stress or worry or whatever it is. So I know one thing that I speak about a lot on my channel and these videos is why I have the outlook on my life that I do, which is from my relationship that I have with God. I spend time every single morning. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, immediately by default, I'm thinking about things that I don't need to be thinking about, usually work things. And so I'm not like happy-go-lucky, what a beautiful morning when I wake up. I've got work things going on in there. Well, I want to get to that point where I'm like, happy-go-lucky, great morning. And so in order to do that, I need to have my devotion time. I need to spend time in God's Word. I need to recenter. I need to reprioritize. And I need to re-see how I see everything, how I think about everything. And then when I do that in the morning, now that sets the tone for the rest of my day. And I've got my priorities in line. I realize what the most important thing in my life is. And I realize that I don't need to worry about things, that I can trust in God, that He's going to take care of my family, my finances, my future. I can lay all that at His feet, and I can trust in Him. And because I can do that and I can trust in Him, that means that I'm not thinking about it anymore. I'm not overthinking about it. And now I'm feeling great, and I can just do what I do. And when I say do what I do, that means that I've got a million different things to do as a home builder, as a father, as a husband, as somebody who's building up our property. But I'm just going to do what I do. And that just means that, like, I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing. I'm going to try to have fun with what I do. I'm not going to be thinking about what I got to do for the next thing while I'm doing this thing. I know I got a lot of stuff to do, but I'm just going to do one thing at a time. I'm going to do what I do. Okay, let's get into the topic of the video today. So, when you are going to be building a spec home, or any home for that matter, if you're building your own home, if you're building a home for a customer, it doesn't matter what it is. Just like the home build, any good home that's built starts with the foundation, right? If you don't have a good foundation, then you're probably not going to have a quality home. You could have issues with your home down the road. So it's kind of the same thing when it comes to building your home, and before the house is done and before the foundation gets put in. The foundation of the building process, the main core foundation to me, is the blueprint. The blueprint is the gospel. When a home is being built, the contractor that is working on the home has a copy of the blueprint, and whether you like it or not, they're going to do what the blueprint says. Now, the good contractors that you have relationships with and are good contractors might call into question some of the things on the blueprint, and they should, hopefully, they'll be calling you and saying, hey, the blueprint is showing this, but I don't know if that's really what you want to do. Or the blueprint doesn't show anything here, so I need to know what you want to do. There are so many contractors out there that just, if the blueprint, so, when you build your roof, you've got a peaked roof, right? If for some reason there was an error with the blueprint and it showed your roof as a peak like this, that like, okay, let's face it, if your roof is built like that, it could fill up with water and stuff. I mean, that would just be idiotic. It would clearly be a typo on the blueprint. But there are some contractors out there that would just move forward and they would build it like that, and they would say, well, that's what the blueprint showed. And so I know that's an extreme example, but it is true. There could be something that was missed or done incorrectly on the blueprint, and the contractor is just going to do what the blueprint says because that's what their job is. Technically they don't have to do any more than that. And it is very frustrating, but that's just the way that it is. So if you're going to be in the building industry, just understand that it is your job to make sure that things get built the right way. The blueprint may be missing some information, and so then when it gets built in the field, if the blueprint is missing something, then your actual house that's being built is going to be missing something. That's a good way to look at it. If your blueprint doesn't spell something out, then it's not going to get done that way. And so how do you eliminate the most mistakes? How do you eliminate the most mistakes from building a house? Well, if everything is correct on your blueprint, and nobody ever called you to ask you about, like, hey, this doesn't look right on the blueprint, or everybody just built the home per the blueprint. Well, if you've got a good blueprint, then you're okay for the most part. Or maybe there's some minimal little things that can come up, but for the most part, you're good. And so what I really want to talk about and discuss today is, it is your responsibility to get all of the details on the blueprint. For example, I just was looking at a blueprint yesterday, and this was for a tile shower in the master bathroom. And the blueprint shows the dimension of the tile shower, shows the shape of the shower, shows where the glass door is, shows where the shower head's going to be. But it said half wall at shower. And this half wall is going to have glass on it. Well, okay, what is the height of the half wall? So I had my salesperson reach out to the customer. Hey, how tall do you want the wall? Because everybody's going to have a different variation of what they think a half wall is. If I've got a 9-foot tall ceiling in my bathroom, so I've got, however many, I'm drawing a blank. I got an 8-foot tall ceiling in my bathroom, so I've got 96 inches right there of height. If the framer just sees that it's supposed to be a half wall, well, they may just say, okay, well, I'm going to just make it a 4-foot wall. It's going to be half of 8 feet. Or same with, what if I got a 10-foot ceiling in the bathroom and the framer says, all right, half wall? All right, we're going to make it 5 foot tall. No, I need to know exactly how many inches tall that wall needs to be. Otherwise, it's going to be a question that comes up while they're building the house, or they're just going to frame it however they think a half wall should be. Maybe they just did a half wall for another builder that was 36 inches. And so they got that in their heads, and they're going to frame a 36-inch tall half wall, and then the customer is going to walk into the home and they're going to be like, well, no, this is too short. I don't have any privacy. You can still see from the chest up. So everybody's got a different definition of their half wall, and so that needs to be something that you have to specify on the plan. So you got to make sure that the plan is specifying everything. As much detail as you can get on the plan, the better. The more, the better. Now, the other thing, and I had this come up with a home that we built, and this was actually not any of our existing homes I'm building right around here, but the blueprint, the draftsman that we got to do the blueprint was just just very frustrated, and the blueprints just do not show a lot of detail. They don't even, like, when it shows the thickness of what your exterior wall is going to be, there's no dimension called out for it. It's just like a solid black line, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, is this an 8-inch thick wall? Is this a 6-inch thick wall? It doesn't really specify anywhere, and so, I mean, there's some very basic things that need to be on blueprints. You need to have as many dimensions as possible. You need to be able to print out a blueprint, and you need to be able to scale it out. So if something doesn't have a dimension on it, it still scales out, so I can at least see what the dimension on it is. But just a lot of very basic things that are typically always on a blueprint that just weren't on this blueprint. And so the foundation of the build is the blueprint. And so we just talked about how important it is to get all of the detail, as much detail as you possibly can on the blueprint. Well, the other important part of that is starting with the right person. You gotta have the right draftsman. You gotta see a blueprint that they've had drawn before, and you gotta get somebody's feedback on it, because there are blueprints that are out there that are very vague. Like, yeah, they show the shape of the home, they show what the square footage is, they show what the overall room dimensions are, but there's just not a lot of detail other than that. I mean, there's so many little things that contractors need to know when they're working on the home, and the blueprints just need to be super detailed, and you can't leave anything to assumption either. Like, for example, when we build all of our homes, we use what is called a freeze board in the gable. So if you've got a gable peak to your home, right below your soffit, which is like the underneath portion of the home, we use a freeze board. This is a 6-inch trim board that kind of outlines the gable. And we do this because it looks nice. It's just a better quality way to abut the siding right into that freeze board, as opposed to abutting the siding right up against the aluminum soffit. It just works better. It looks nice. It's something that we automatically do on all of our homes. And we've begun blueprints drawn. We've been using a new draftsman, and the freeze board is not shown on the blueprint. Well, because the cider that we use has been siding for us for many years, well, they know what we want there, and they understand what we want, and so they're just going ahead and automatically doing that. But the thing is the blueprint doesn't show it on there. So if if we used a new cider, then, and we didn't have the freeze board shown on there, well, then it might not make it onto the plan, and then it's not gonna make it onto the house. So there's just a lot of things like that where it's kind of like, the draftsman just saying, well, that they can just kind of do what they normally do there, or do what they want there. But no, it's got to be on the blueprint. The blueprint is the instruction manual on how the home is to be built. And so I don't want anything left to interpretation there. I want everything shown on the blueprint. Now, there are certain things that don't get shown on the blueprint. There are certain things that, the selections that we do, and we have a selections form for every home that we build. The selections form is going to call out the types of shingles that we're using on the roof, the color of the shingles. They're going to call out the type of windows, the color of the windows, that type of stuff. The type of plumbing fixture that we're going to have, things like that, things that aren't shown on the blueprint. So the selections form goes along with the blueprint. And then we also have the building agreement, which is basically our pricing that we give to a customer to kind of show them everything that's included in their price. So between that, the selections form, and the blueprint, that's what all of our homes are being built off of. So that's where you build the home on paper. You've got the building agreement, which is basically our budget that we do, and we take that budget and we put it into more detail so we can show the client exactly what is included in their build. And then we've got the selections forms, which takes what's in the contract and gives it even more specification and detail. And then we put as much of that detail as we can onto the blueprint. Those are the things that the home is built off of. So what I wanted to talk about in this video is you cannot start a home build without having a detailed blueprint. Now, the selections form and the list of everything else that's going to be in the home, yes, we need that too. That's equally as important, or almost as important. But in this video, I'm just talking about the blueprint. So I've seen time and time again where people will start a house, they don't have a good blueprint. Because they don't have a good blueprint, when they sent that blueprint out to get a quote on the lumber or on the trim or on the siding, they're not getting accurate numbers because the blueprint is vague. You do not want a vague blueprint. So if the blueprint is vague and it doesn't spell things out, well, then again, like the cider is going to bid out your house. If it doesn't show that freeze board trim in the gable, they're going to give you a price without it. And then when it comes time to actually do the siding, maybe you meet them there on site and you're pointing at the house across the street like, yeah, that's how I want it to look over there. Oh, I didn't have that accounted for in there. That's going to be an extra, $2,500 to do that at all the gables. Now, that your budget's kind of blown. That wasn't in your siding number that you got there. So it's just so important to make sure that you've got a good and detailed blueprint, and that the blueprint is not vague. Nothing is left to interpretation. You want to make sure that everything is specified on the blueprint, because if you're sending out a blueprint to get bids and things aren't specified and it's a vague blueprint, you're not going to get accurate bids. So there's one thing that is trouble. You could run into other issues where, here's an issue that we ran into with building a spec home, is the draftsman that did the blueprint drew up the blueprint, and then they didn't have any exterior dimensions on there. It called out like what all the room dimensions were and everything like that, but it wasn't clear on how thick the exterior walls were and what those exterior dimensions were. So we used a different company to put together our foundation plan, because the foundation plan had to be stamped by an engineer. And so the company that did the foundation plan, they were able to stamp off on it. That's what was submitted for, for permit. That's what it was built off of. Well, the company that did the foundation plan, because our blueprint was vague, they sized the foundation for exactly what the size of the home was, like interior wise. They didn't take into account that this blueprint showed 8-inch thick exterior walls in certain areas. And so what ended up happening is the foundation went in, and then the house, we've got a blueprint, we know what the overall size is, that needs to be built within the foundation. So then when we go to take that home and build it on the foundation, now in order to fit on the foundation, we had to scooch in all of the exterior walls by a little bit to fit on the foundation. Really, the foundation should have ended up being 4 inches wider all the way around, because the other issue was there was a lot of brick on this home. When you're building a home with brick, you need to have a 4-inch brick ledge in order for the brick to sit onto. If your blueprint or your foundation does not show a 4-inch brick ledge in there, and your foundation gets poured without that brick ledge, well, your exterior walls, if you've got a 6-inch thick exterior wall, and then you've got 4 inches of brick on top of that, that means you've got 10 inches there for your exterior wall. And your foundation needed to actually account for a 10-inch exterior wall rather than a 6-inch exterior wall. If you had cultured stone you were doing on the front of the home, or you had no brick that you were doing there, it would be fine. If it accounted for the 6-inch thick exterior wall, it'd be fine, because those products get applied and stuck to the exterior wall. But with brick, you need another 4 inches in the foundation for that brick to sit onto. This plan was vague. It did not show that. So now all of a sudden they pour the foundation, per what the exterior dimensions on the blueprint were. The blueprint did not show the brick ledge. And so then when it came time to framing up the home, we're like, oh, okay, well, we need to account for the 4 inches of brick. And in order to do that, we have to creep in all of the exterior walls and essentially make the house smaller and kind of redesign things. That is a huge, in this case, it actually worked out fine. Everything was able to work out. But there were still some issues with it. There were plumbing drain. This was a slab on grade. So before the foundation was poured, the rough plumbing was put in with plumbing drains. So when we moved things a little bit, that means that we had to move some of the floor drains that were already poured into concrete. So when the plumber came to do his work after the house was framed up, he had to bust open concrete floors and he had to move drains. There's cost to that. Now, at this point, it's hard. You can't really go back to the draftsman. You've already paid them. It's hard to go back to them and be like, hey, I need you to pay for this. Because they're going to say, well, you looked at the plans we sent up to you, you approved them, you didn't say anything about that. And yeah, no, we didn't, because I'm used of every other plan that I get having that specification on there. And there's a lot of different things to pay attention to when you're building a home. So even an AI created individual, a robot with an AI mind, is still going to miss certain things like that. So again, if it's not on the blueprint, there's a chance, and a real good chance, that it gets missed. If it's on the blueprint, then you don't have to rely on yourself to there are thousands and thousands of components that go into a home. There are hundreds of different things to check when it comes to a home. There are multiple people to manage. There's so many little things going on that it is easy to miss certain things on a blueprint. But if you're ensuring that the person that is drawing your blueprint, if they are a seasoned professional and they've been drawing blueprints and they've got all the detail that's needed on there, well, they're going to be a safety net for you. Because even if you don't know that much about home building, if you're using a good draftsman, they do. And they're going to make sure that foundation for your build has a ton of the detail in there. That's going to give you a great head start, and you cannot move forward with building a home until you've got exact and detailed blueprints. Let me rephrase that. If you wanted to, you could move forward. You could probably even get the permit. You could move forward with a crappy plan that's very vague. But you're going to have all kinds of issues in the field. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to have unexpected expenses that you are going to be responsible for and you are going to have to pay for. It can turn out to be a complete nightmare. So you don't want to move forward with building a home or even sending out the home plan for bid until you've got exact, finalized blueprints, all the details on there. You know everything's good to go with the plan. That starts with the draftsman. And then from there, even if you can't find a great draftsman, you can maybe consult with somebody like myself and my consulting services that I offer, details in the description below. And I can look over plans as well, but you just cannot start the home without that. Okay, that's all I've got for this video. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care. See you next time, and God bless.